How's that worked out for you?
Absolutely wonderful. The best decision of my life. Absolutely love it. I have lots of contact with students, lots of contact with teachers. It has freed me up as far as stress level and as far as a lot of the responsibilities that are on teachers' shoulders today. I don't have to deal with a lot of that. So in that respect, it was the best decision I've ever made.
So rather than just quitting education completely, you just kind of modified it and changed it for what was good for you. And instead of just sticking in the same old routine, you found something that worked better for you.
Yes, yes.
Hi, this is Bryan. I welcome you to another edition of the podcast for teachers by a teacher. And I want you to sit back and relax. And I know you can do that because it's summertime.
But what happens if you're at that point where you're still getting burned out? Well, we're going to talk with a woman named Karen Pace, longtime educator who's in this very same predicament. And she was just getting burned out. She was making all sorts of changes, working at different schools, teaching different grade levels. And still, it's coming up dry in the satisfaction well. But she made a change. We're going to talk to Karen and find out what she did. I want to welcome Karen to the show, and thanks for being here.
Oh, my pleasure.
Karen, how long have you been teaching or in the educational system?
33 years. A lot of changes come and go. You always heard how the pendulum swings, and I've definitely seen it go back and forth many times.
I want to get into some of the changes that you've seen since then, but take us back and tell us why you wanted to get into this business.
As a young person growing up in that era, I grew up in a very small town, and there were not a whole lot of opportunities for women. Women were encouraged to go into either secretarial work, nursing, teaching. At that time, some people were going into the airline business as airline stewardesses and things of that nature. But I was always interested in teaching because I went to a two-room schoolhouse. And the teachers there had such an impact on me and modeled and gave me a really good impression on as to how they have affected everybody's lives and that the impact they had on my life, the nurturing, the caring, and just basically being around kids.
You had some good teachers growing up too that kind of inspired you.
I had some wonderful teachers growing up. In elementary school, we had what was called the big room and the little room. So I had two teachers basically, but through 4 years. And, but when I got into high school, there were a couple of teachers that were just absolutely awesome. And,
what made them awesome?
They're treating me as if they actually cared. Eye contact when they talked to me, taking time to work with me. My typing teacher was one of the first teachers who talked to me as a human being and not just a typing student. She was interested in things that I was doing outside of school. And so just that part of it.
What other things did they show that made you feel like you're a human being as versus some student at a desk?
The small talk in the halls if they see you, or in the cafeteria, or even being out in a store, or just them making the attempt to come see me and remember me, call me by name. Things like that. That was really important because sometimes you tend to get lost. And even though I went to a very small school, teachers are, extremely busy people, and you don't see them always as human beings. But when one person takes the time to see that you're not wearing your usual smile today, what's going on, and seeing that there's something there that might be bothering you, actually take the time away from their desk or their business to come and see how you were doing. That was very impressive to me.
Pretty powerful too.
Mm-hmm.
As you look back, you still remember that all these years later.
Yes. Yeah.
You decide you become a teacher. You get ready to start your first year of teaching. What was that first year of teaching like for you? And what grade level?
I taught third grade. It was in the lowest paying school district in the state of Kansas.
Oh.
Which was probably the best experience I could have ever had. I walked in after I interviewed and had accepted the position. The superintendent actually took me down to the classroom and said, "Here's your room. Go teach." And so it was, do or die. We didn't have anybody there holding our hand and making sure that we were doing it. You either had to sink or swim. But I went into that classroom thinking, okay, I'm here, now what? But it was the best growing experience I'd ever had, because I knew I had to stand on my own 2 feet. I knew I was extremely responsible for all these human beings that would be walking in my room within a week. It was terrifying, but exciting, and probably the best experience I ever had.
What would you say to new teachers who are getting ready to maybe they're in college right now and they're getting ready to start this coming fall, their teaching career? What advice would you have for college grads just starting, or even people making career switches and getting ready to start their first year of teaching?
I would encourage them to take the first year as a learning experience and not to place judgment on that profession during that first year, because there are so many challenges and there's so many experiences that take place, good and bad. Be prepared to stand firm in what you believe. You're going to have a lot of people telling you that you need to do this or you need to do that. You're going to have parents challenging you. You chose this profession. You've done all the coursework. You have prepared yourself. So now believe in yourself and stand firm in that belief.
Not only with parents, but probably fellow teachers and definitely students will challenge you.
Exactly.
How firm you're going to stand. Did you stay in elementary school?
I did. I taught all grade levels except 4th. I taught pre-K all the way through 6th grade. I did a Title I reading and math one time. I've done computer lab. Then I departmentalized when I went into 5th grade and did just like 5th grade reading and language. So I had a varied experience with all the different grade levels.
Any particular, which was your favorite?
Well, I taught kindergarten for 10 years and I loved it. But
lots of patience there.
But realized that as I aged, that patience was growing a little bit thin. So it was time to move on. When it came to a point where I felt like I was getting stagnant and not really moving, then I needed to challenge myself. And that's when I would ask or request to change grade levels. And when I was younger, I really enjoyed the younger kids. As I've gotten older, I really enjoy the older kids. So it's just a time thing.
How did you know it was time to change? So you felt
I lost
stagnant.
I lost my creativity. The joy wasn't there. It was becoming a job, and I didn't want my job to be a job. If I felt like I wasn't excited about being there, then it's time to move on, because I'm not doing myself, plus I'm not doing the kids any good.
Was it just the subject matter, or just an internal thing for you? It wasn't the kids, it wasn't the parents or the administrators?
From changing grade level to grade level, it was just an internal thing. Later on, after about 30 years of being in the classroom, I knew I needed a definite change because of all the outside factors. Parents, philosophies in education, ideas, where education seems to be headed. I felt like I was losing my beliefs and my ideas as far as what I wanted to achieve as a teacher, and wasn't able to accomplish that. So I felt like I definitely needed to do something different. And because I had so many years invested in education and wasn't at a point where I could actually retire yet, I knew I needed a change. And so I went into media.
How's that worked out for you?
Absolutely wonderful. The best decision of my life. Absolutely love it. I have lots of contact with students, lots of contact with teachers. It has freed me up as far as stress level and as far as a lot of the responsibilities that are on teachers' shoulders today. I don't have to deal with a lot of that. So in that respect, it was the best decision I've ever made.
So rather than just quitting education completely, you just kind of modified it and changed it for what was good for you. And instead of just sticking in the same old routine, you found something that worked better for you.
Yes.
Now you probably get to talk with the kids more.
Yes, it brought back that excitement. It brought back that joy. And when you have a natural love for kids, you want to be there. You want to be a part of their lives. You want to try to play some role in a positive way in their life. And I feel like I can do that in the media center without having all the other headaches.
All those other headaches.
All those other headaches. I'm just trying to be nice. Education is a wonderful profession. And, I don't have any regrets about being in education. I know there are a lot of other professions where you can make a lot more money and maybe go a lot further in the profession. But for me, education was a good choice. I did not want to be just an everyday teacher. I wanted to do the best that I could. And so when I felt like there were times when I was getting burned out or things just didn't seem to be as exciting as they used to be, then I would challenge myself to move on and do something different. Staying within the profession, but just making a different change.
What other things have you seen that have changed either let's talk about the negative and then we'll get to wrap it up with the positive. What things have you seen that have gotten worse in 30 years in education?
Teachers' hands are tied. Teachers aren't allowed to teach. And they have lost their ability to give the kids what they have been trained to do, and it's more robotic. I feel like they are. You are scheduled to teach this at a certain time. You have to teach that standard. Everything's become more. We're more worried more about testing, and we're worried more about the outcome of the test, and therefore the pressure that's placed on teachers is unrealistic. And that stress adds up from the very first day you walk in during pre-planning, you start talking testing in spring. Yeah. And that is something that it's unhuman, if that's a word, to think that anybody can deal with that kind of stress all year long, knowing that your job is really based on the outcome of the test.
Especially low-income schools or schools that are struggling. I mean, the job is stressful enough, and having that extra stress is something that probably wasn't around as much 30 years ago.
No. When I first started teaching, we did the ITBS. It was done in the spring, and our counselors came in. They administered the test. They took the test, and that was the end of it. There wasn't this comparing teacher to teacher, school to school. It was basically to give us a guide of how the students had performed and what their strengths and weaknesses are and how we can better serve the student. Now it's not like that. It's almost a race. It's almost a competition to see, who can have the better scores. And in the meantime, we lose what we go into teaching for, and that's to reach those kids.
The whole focus is lost.
The whole focus is lost.
I know for myself, you hear more talk about the test than you do working with the kids and making a difference.
Yes, exactly.
There's more workshops on raising test scores than,
And accountability. You have, and all the paperwork that is involved in teaching today. There's enough just with lesson plans and keeping up with grading papers and stuff. But now everything, you have to be accountable for this. You have to keep records on. Everything that you do is so time consuming that you spend more time doing paperwork than you actually do teaching. And I remember when I was in the classroom, our lesson plans were checked every week. We had to turn them in. It was like turning in a homework assignment, and there were comments made, and you have to have this set down, and you have to have this, put in. Everything had to be in a certain format, and I would really resent the fact that I would have to spend so many hours on lesson plans that were for me to use when I could have been planning a really good lesson and pulling all this material and all these resources in for the lesson. There was no time for that, so it was all about making everything look good. And then there's no time left for the teacher to actually do the good.
And, we probably all got in this business to work with kids. And I've heard this quote. Let me know what you think about it. In 30 years, someone told me, well, kids haven't changed in all these years. It's how parents have raised them that have changed.
That is
What do you think about that?
I agree. Kids want to be accepted. Kids want to please. Kids want to do what's right, and they want to know what their limits are. When I started teaching, if you ever had to call a parent, which was not very often, because even in the lowest income school in the state of Kansas, which was, could be a pretty rough group, there were very few phone calls home because of discipline. There was very few times when a parent would come and question what you had to say. Not that we're always right. They understood that we were human and we were doing the best that we could. The support was there. And the kids, they did their best. And, teachers are good people. You don't go into teaching because you want to hurt a child. You don't go into teaching because you want to do something that's wrong or make that child feel less less a person. So, it's just the whole idea of it's like somebody has to take the blame for what's going on with our kids today. And so who better than teachers?
Do you suppose that's going to get better, or will kind of continue to go the wrong direction?
I think that the time will come when enough will be enough. I think the time will come when we're going to start seeing, what we've actually done. And that's going to be my fear because we're raising kids that we're putting kids out in our societies that, because of their rearing or where their backgrounds are or whatever, I don't feel like they're really prepared.
Right.
And it's not because teachers haven't tried. It's not because the effort and the concern wasn't there. It's because, as I said earlier, our hands are tied. And there's only so much we can do. We can't enforce a lot of discipline. And if they aren't being supported by parents at home, then excuses are being made, and they're not made to accept their responsibility and be accountable for their behavior.
Most teachers these days don't make it past the 5-year mark. Mm-hmm. If you were starting out, would you think you'd make it the whole 30 years in the classroom?
I wouldn't. I loved my job. Even though I came home thinking, this is it. When I brought my first paycheck home, this is all I have. How am I going to make it? And it's been that way pretty much all the way through the profession as far as the financial part of it. But I love the idea that I felt like I made a difference. Well, when I became interested in going into media, not knowing that I was going to have to make a change, what I was seeing within that 10-year period before I made that decision was I had lost that power. I had lost the ability to work with the kids in the way that I felt like I needed to do. And I was fighting. It was a battle within myself every day. I just disagreed with the philosophies. And so I knew that I was going against my beliefs. So I had to do something.
Well, we don't want to end on a bad note. So let's talk more about the good side. What has changed that's been good in the last 30 years? What's improved?
I think we have a lot more resources as far as what we can use in the classrooms with our students. I've seen a lot, the technology that's come around.
Absolutely.
Depending on what school system you're in, teachers today have a lot of extra support and help getting started in the field. It seems to be more money, not a lot more, but it seems like there's more interest and more knowledge now that we do need more money to raise, for school and for funding for schools. I know just in my field right now in the media, that's a big push, technology and more funding for actual books and materials and supplies. So I think that's a big positive thing. When I started, there wasn't 33 years ago, there wasn't a lot of money. Teachers had to spend, of course, and they still do, but they had to spend tons of money of their own. As far as the media, just being in the media center, I think we've come a long way. We've got the media specialist is not just a librarian anymore. She is actually considered, or he, a teacher. And I like that part. I like knowing that we are a part of the school and that we are considered, somebody that kids can go to for help. And we're not just there to check out books.
And you don't have the card catalog anymore.
Oh, yay. Thank goodness for that.
The old-fashioned and hitting the date thing.
Yes, if that was still going on, I probably wouldn't be in the library.
So we got to say that's definitely improved.
That's definitely improved. The technology end of it is wonderful.
All right. Any words of encouragement to the discouraged teacher as they are kind of ending the year here and wondering if they should leave the teaching profession or maybe stick with it? Anything you can say to motivate that teacher?
The first year I taught, as all teachers do, you wonder, am I making a difference? And I had one very wise teacher look at me and say, if you have touched and helped one child, you are a success. And even though I don't have the opportunity to be with as many kids as classroom teachers do today, I still believe in that philosophy. We're here to help kids, and they need us. And if we can show a child that they are worthy, then no matter what those test scores say, no matter what happens throughout the course of the year, if you've helped that one child, because believe it, anyone who's been in a teacher knows you're going to see that impact later on. And, it's just a wonderful feeling to know that you kept a child from sinking.
And especially in this day and age, our kids are much more needy, and you have that opportunity to make a difference if you can keep your head above all the other stresses that the teaching profession has to offer, and keep your focus that way.
That's right.
Karen Pace, veteran educator, woman of many trades in the classroom and media centers. So I want to thank you for being on the show.
Thank you, Ryan. It was my pleasure.